So what is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to a new POV Drive. Today you join me inside the Audi Q7. So this is the facelift model and we're going to talk about it. And I have to say, there is a lot that I want to put out there about this car. So let's start with the basics or the specs. So the car is powered by a 3-liter turbo V6 motor pushing 250 kilowatts of power and 500 Newton meters of torque. It's mated to an 8-speed automatic gearbox. Then in terms of suspension, it rides on air suspension. And yeah, it's nice and soft, especially if you're driving on a very smooth road. It just feels like you're driving on clouds, basically. So it's quite a comfortable ride, to say the least. Now, I also want to try and compare it to its rivals like the BMW X5, Mercedes GLE, but I haven't done my background check in terms of the cost on the X5 and the GLE current pricing. But I know this particular Q7 starts from just under 2 million rands. So I think in terms of model designation, this is the 55 TFSI. And the engine is the V6 that we already spoke about. And from what I've seen, there's only 2 offerings in terms of engines with this new facelift model. It's this V6, and the next one is the more potent SQ7 that comes with a V8. Now, I think in terms of offering, it's lacking, because on a car like this, you do need like a diesel motor just to get that extra bit of better fuel consumption, which you don't get out of this. But I have to say, this V6 engine is actually not bad at all. Like, I never found myself complaining or surprised by the fuel consumption. It's quite addictive to do this. It's very addictive to do that. And if you drive like that, obviously the fuel consumption is going to be just up the roof, you know. Driving in town, I found myself doing anywhere from 10 to 11 liters per 100 kilometers. Audi claims the car will average, I think it's 9.9 liters per 100 kilometers, 9.9 or 9.2, between the two. But I'll put the actual figure on screen. I also drove the car to Zanin and back. And during that trip, the lowest figure I got was 8.3 liters per 100 kilometers. So not horrible, really. If you just drive it normally and you're just cruising, it's okay. It's okay, really. I don't think you're going to be crying that, oh, this car chows a lot of fuel. So that's where I'll leave it off in terms of fuel consumption. I don't want to give too much details because I'm leaving some of the information for the main review video, which also I'm not sure if I'm going to put out before the POV or after. But whatever the case may be, I'll just link the videos around, and also do look out for the channel because I'll be posting the videos back to back. So if you find one or the other, just check the description, check the channel. They should be posted around the same time. But going back to the addictive part about this car, like the performance of it, my goodness, this car just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It makes 0 sense because, number one, it's big. It's a 7-seater, so it's big, it's heavy. Even the proportions, like driving it around, it's a massive car. Although it's not intimidating to approach because of all the safety systems. It's got parking sensors, reverse cameras, as you can see, blind spot monitoring and stuff. So it's got all those gizmos. So I wouldn't say it's intimidating to drive. You instantly get used to it as soon as you jump in it and start driving. And also it's very smooth and all. But the part that I'm talking about now is the performance of this car. It is mind-bendingly fast for what it is, for its size, for its weight. Just doesn't make sense how fast this car actually is. And I know it might sound like I'm exaggerating. Trust me, as a person who's been in all sorts of performance cars like hot hatches, performance SUVs, performance sedans, I'm even losing my words now, like your M3s and your C63s, let me tell you, this thing, oh my word. So here are the stats. So 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, 5.6 seconds in this car. Top speed, 250 kilometers an hour. Just for reference, the new VW Golf GTI, the 8.5, does 0 to 100 in 5.9 seconds. A GTI TCR does it in about 5.7 seconds. i30N is also around there, 5.7, 5.8. So now you start to see this behemoth of a thing can keep up with a hot hatch. Granted, not on a twisty road and whatever, because the weight comes into play. But if we're driving on the highway or on the N1, just a long stretched out road, I would like to see a GTI beat this thing. Honestly, I would like to see a GTI beat this thing, because where it shines actually is not doing takeoffs like robot to robot accelerations. It actually comes alive when you're already moving. You see, like right now, doing 80 kilometers an hour and you just want to get up to speed, this is where it shines. This is where it shines. This car is so fast, good people. This is where it shines. When you're already moving, when you're already at speed, when you already have momentum, and you just put your foot down, my word. I just found myself giggling like a child all the time. Like it's been a wonderful experience with this car. Like living with it, traveling to Zanin in it. It's just such a wholesome package. Like you have this big, luxurious family car that can also be very quick, hey? You'll give some hot hatches a run for their money, definitely. And I feel like also in terms of styling, what you get from the interior and the tech and whatever, I'm really leaning towards this car. I haven't been in the new X5 LCI, but I don't know, this car just resonates much more with me. Before driving it now, I was never thinking about the Audi Q7, you know, and to be honest, I see on the road more people are buying the X5 and the GLE than they are buying the Q7. You hardly see the Q7. Okay, I always see the older ones, but none of the newer models, which is sad really, because this is actually an amazing car, hey? Is this a car I would buy if I was in a position where I wanted a car like this? Yeah, definitely, 100%. And I promise you, I'm not giving you a biased opinion just because I'm in the car now, I'm experiencing it. I genuinely feel like this is an amazing offering. Like the pricing, the engine, and everything that it comes with, it's hard to overlook this. And I actually find it very sad that less people are buying this than they are the rivals. But hey, people like what they like. I guess what BMW is doing or what they're offering at the moment is amazing. So yeah, that's that. But I'm going to tell you, this car, look into it. If you have a chance, look into it. Whether you need to go to a dealership, get a test drive, or just be inside and play around with it, look into it. I promise you, it will not disappoint you. So from an equipment perspective, like the tech that you get, I think this is the older MMI setup, because now they're going for the new dual screens that you find in every other car. And I really hate. Okay, let's accelerate now. Look at this. Ah, my goodness. Woo! This car is quick. And people do get out of your way, because I can imagine seeing this behemoth of a thing on your rear view mirror coming at you very fast. I would also move out the way quickly. It is so intimidating. So I was still saying, tech-wise, this is the older style stuff, because now they're doing the new dual screens, and I hate Audi for doing that. Why? Because everyone else is doing that. Mercedes-Benz started the trend back in, I think, around 2013 with that era of S-Class, and then it trickled down in all the other models, A-Class and whatever. And ever since Mercedes did it, everyone else followed suit. Chinese manufacturers are using that setup. Even BMW is using that sort of setup. So I feel like now it's not giving us variety, you know. So I feel like Audi should have just stuck with this. Although I see that people are complaining that this is now dated. For me personally, I don't know, man. Does it need to have a bigger screen for it not to be dated? I guess. But this is quite cool, hey? The lower screen mainly serves as your climate control, and like every other car that uses touch-sensitive climate controls, they're a bit of a faff to use compared to dials, knobs, and buttons. But this is one of the best implementations I've ever come across. Once you learn what control is situated, is what I was trying to say, then it becomes very easy. You know where your on button is, and then the icons are relatively big to use. And there's also a shortcut for the seat controls. So you see the seat icons. If you click on it, it'll pop out the seat adjustment, the massage function, seat heating and cooling function. Although some of the shortcuts are also right here on the main screen, like heating, cooling, and whatever. There's a shortcut button right there. So I quite like that. It also serves as a different control unit. So if you use the car's onboard navigation and say you want to search something, now this bottom screen serves as a keyboard. Let's see. Okay, I think it's not gonna work now because I'm driving. So that's my thinking. So you need to be stopped for it to pop up as a keyboard, because imagine how you're gonna type something while you're driving. So I think if I come to a stop, maybe it'll work. I don't know. Let's see now. Let me try it again and see. Keyboard. Yeah, still. Oh, when you're driving, you can actually. SOS. Oh yeah, there it is. There it is. So it was just in the drawing mode, because you can actually use your own handwritings. Let's say SAN 10 and stuff. So you can use your finger as a pen basically, or you can use the traditional way of a keyboard and just type out the letters. But yeah, once the car is moving, it doesn't allow you to do that for safety reasons, like I said. So it's got some cool tech, nice tech. I didn't have any problem with the setup, but I understand that Audi had to move on. They had to come up with new styling, new tech, and that's why they decided to go for the new dual screen setup. But yeah, it is what it is. And I'm just gonna do a hard acceleration now. And let's see. But oof. Man, the way this car just gets off the line and gets going is crazy, really. It's crazy. But yeah, there's also other parts of the car, as the sound system, which I'll do a video covering it. It's equipped with a Bang & Olufsen sound system, 17 speakers, and there's also a subwoofer in the boot. It's got 730 watts of sound power, and yeah, like I said, I'll do a full review video and you can watch that video if you want to learn more about the sound system. And also I quite like this gear lever. Like, it puts your arm into a natural position when you're driving. Like the armrest combined with this gear lever, it's just so perfect. And also for using this climate control screen and for typing on the keyboard, it's such a natural position. And nowadays manufacturers are going for those small toggles as gear selectors. Need to slow down. Yeah, you do feel the weight, especially in such situations where you need to go on the brakes hard, but when you're driving, it just picks itself up so well. I quite like the mixture of materials inside, although it's full of glossy black on the dashboard front fascia. I feel like it's not really a part that you interact with. Why would you ever need to touch there? The screens, yeah, unless if you have kids and they're messy and they're playing around the car, they're putting their hands everywhere, showcase. But I like how they didn't put it on this part of the door, because you always interact with the door handle. So if it was glossy black, like your fingernails and stuff, it would be very scratchy basically. I like this. That's well thought out. The only issue is when you take the car to the car wash and stuff, yeah, they might scratch it up if they're not using proper cloths and whatever. But I feel like the way it's integrated is not bad. It's nice. They've kept it away from you, unless if you're driving in like dusty areas, then there will be a lot of dust there. Just keep a microfiber cloth basically. I also like how that V6 motor is very fruity. It's always present. Although this is not necessarily a performance car, it's such a massive, characterful engine, and it suits the car so well. I don't think a 2-liter motor would work in this. Yeah, diesel might work if it's like properly powerful, but this motor actually suits the car brilliantly. I think they should have offered this petrol V6 and a diesel V6, and it would have been perfect. The diesel V6 that's in the VW Touareg, that would have been perfect. That would have been perfect. But yeah, I'm not really complaining, because like I said, this engine suits the car so well, although I'm aware that a diesel motor would have offered better fuel economy. Now, here's another interesting thing. If this car performs like this, how is the SQ7, because that has like 373 kilowatts and 770 newton meters of torque. How insane is that? Oh, it's just so effortless. I'm not even foot flat, by the way, just gently massaging the accelerator. It is so effortless. This as a car to use every day, man, I don't see how I would want anything else. Unless if I get an itch to get a small performance car, then yeah, definitely that's granted. But as your everyday car, to live with this, if you're commuting to work, if you're gonna use it as a holiday car as well to travel with your family and whatever, this just ticks all the boxes. Takes literally every single box. It is an incredible machine. And yeah, I think that's where I'll end it off with this POV drive. I really do hope you guys enjoyed it. And until next time, that's cheers from me.